Perfect. So Dave and I wanted to come live today because we host a lot of marketing training programs. And recently we've modified the syllabus to add how to run wildly successful digital events because, as many of you know, many organizations are reliant on trade shows for a lot of lead generation. A lot of people have started putting on live events. And then by some serendipity, I was in a MSP marketing and sales thread, and there was a lot of people saying, hey, we're doing great digital events. We've even had New York Times bestselling authors. The content's great, but we're having trouble or challenge connecting the attendance. Well, first challenge is connecting registrants to attendance. So making sure that you get people to sign up, but then actually get people to attend. And there's some secrets we're going to share with you on how to do that. And then once people attend, how do we connect the attendance to actually leads, sales opportunities? I think someone specifically said, hey, our SDRs are having trouble connecting with people. And so I thought, wait a minute, it just happened to be the same week that we were teaching this course at the same time that we got this email. So clearly there's something out there where people have a need. Let's go live and see if we can help even just one person. So that's where we're at.
Cool. Well, thanks, Mac, for putting it together. So whenever we do these trainings, we like to always start with kind of the mindset behind the training itself. To help you understand what I call the 6-inch issue, which is the space between these two ears here. Maybe for me, it's a little bigger because I got a big head, you know. Mac doesn't like my dad jokes. Yeah. So let me just tell you a little bit about how we discovered this playbook for digital events. And for us, it really started when we ran in-person events, right, Mackenzi? As we were looking at how to get better ROI out of things like trade shows, like the ones you see here on the screen. And so what we found is that there was a point in time for us where these trade shows just were not doing very well, where we weren't getting what we wanted out of them, where they were really kind of a waste of time, waste of money. And
or it felt like that, at least.
What's that?
It felt like that, at least.
Yeah.
We'd go there, we'd invest all this money, we'd show up, we'd haul all of our suitcases there, all our equipment, we'd get a bunch of people there, and then people leave and they're like, well, that wasn't the best use of my 4 days.
So what we decided to do at some point is tackle this and say, okay, how do we make this a worthwhile investment? And we came up with this playbook, which is in part what we're sharing with you today, that would allow us to, by the time we got to the show, by the time we got to the event, that we would know in advance whether or not we were going to generate an ROI positive return from that event. In other words, based on the number of meetings that we had scheduled in advance before the event itself, things that were locked down on the calendar, meetings locked down on the calendar, we knew that we had enough there for our sales team to be able to deliver the return that we needed. So even if no one walked by our booth there on the floor, we knew that we still would generate enough opportunities to ROI out of the event. Now, of course, people would always walk by. So it was like cherry on top, or whatever the expression is. Not only did we have, what, Mackenzi, 40, 50, 60 appointments set, but also all of the additional foot traffic that would come by the event. So we kind of put this playbook together to run in-person events, and then it's morphed into what we do for digital, which we're going to show you here in a second. So look at the screen here. You should be able to see it if you're on Facebook, if you're in LinkedIn. Give me a 1 if you can see this flow chart. Hopefully you can see it big enough. Drop a 1 in the comments, please, over on LinkedIn, Facebook. What this is at a very high level. Let me get my little pen out here. Let's keep it fun.
I love it when you do that.
Yeah, you love when I get my pen out, huh? Here's my pen drawing on the screen. Can you all see that? So this over here on the right-hand side, we put this here to represent the actual event, like the trade show. In this case, the example that we have here on the screen is Printing United. Where are my print people at? Hopefully we got some print people here today. Printing United was an event we did at the end of last year. And our goal at the event, pretty much at all events, is to set up one-on-one meetings for our sales team, as I mentioned to you. And if we have a speaking opportunity, we have a session that we can present at to drive awareness of that presentation and get people to that presentation to hear what we have to say, okay? So that's what this represents here on the right-hand side. Now, over here on the left, if you can see this over here on the left, this represents the data that we have, or that you have, about people who might be attending the event. Maybe they've attended the event in the past, or if you call the show sponsors, oftentimes you can either get or buy the list of attendees. Now, Mac, what happens often when you ask for the list of attendees? What's usually the answer that you get?
So typically you ask them once and they say that they don't offer the list of the registrants. And then just like anything else in the world, you don't take no for an answer and you go back and you ask again. And again, the ultimate goal is for you to be able to obtain that list so that you can start to communicate with them beforehand, which we'll talk about. But from the show's perspective, people are signing up to come to an event, right? They're coming there for something. They want to learn, they want to network, they want to gain some education about something. So that's sort of the pitch that I make to the trade show host is I say, listen, people are coming here. We want to make it worthwhile to them. So we want to tell them about all the great events that you have going on that we're going to be hosting so that they can really get the most out of their attendance and their investment in time and resources showing up to the show. So when you frame it like that, typically trade show hosts are receptive. If you just say like, I want the list because I want to sell to them, they're probably not going to provide the list. But just be mindful of how you're asking and how you position that. So keep asking until you get the list. And like Dave said, if you don't, that's okay. It's not a roadblock. Get a list of the people who went in previous years, maybe from your CRM, or we've done things like target the demographic within 50 miles of the event. So if you're going to a show that's hypothetically about real estate, well, go target all the people that live or that reside, that are within companies that are within 50 miles or 100 miles of wherever the event is being hosted that have an interest in real estate. So even if you don't get the list, that shouldn't be a roadblock, right? You always can get creative.
Yep. So I see David, I see Jeffrey, Ryan, Deborah, Jim over there on LinkedIn. Thanks, folks, for engaging. What we're just talking about is how to get butts in the seat for attendance at an event at the trade show or one-on-one meetings. And Mackenzi was just talking about how you can get the show data in advance. And now here's the thing that's a little bit different that we want to show you, and it's going to come to light more when we talk about the digital event. Most people, when they're trying to promote a trade show or their attendance, they're exhibiting at a trade show, will drive traffic or try to drive traffic to that event by simply saying, hey, we're going to be in booth 1, 2, 3, 4, come by and see us. Or, hey, we're going to be speaking at an event on Saturday at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, right? Most organizations handle that kind of promotion in that way. What we found is that a different approach actually worked a lot better. And the approach was, you see this column here, Mackenzi?
Yes, sir.
These lead magnets here? Yeah. So these lead magnets, this column here represents high value content like PDFs, ebooks, case studies, white papers, things like that are irresistible to the attendees of that trade show. And so what we found is when we put these in front of folks that are likely attending or are attending, okay, and provide that to them first, what would then happen is they would download this piece of content. And then on the thank you page, on the second page, we would say, oh, by the way, if this is of interest to you, we're going to be at Printing United next week. And then we would say, hey, do you want to have a one-on-one meeting with us to talk about XYZ? Or we also have an exclusive event ticket for you on reserve for this particular event. And when we would follow that kind of process, in other words, instead of just going straight from there over to here, rather go through this process. We're going to step through this in more detail in just a second. We were able to drive more results for one-on-one meetings and attendance to these events. Mac, you want to add anything to that?
No, that's it.
Yeah. So we're going to show you that now. What we started to think about here is we saw this working, especially with COVID and the pandemic and working from home and all that, is would this same kind of playbook work for digital only events? And so what we found is that digital only events can employ a really similar playbook to what we just described here a second ago. And typically they're run like webinars. You'll hear webinars being the term that's used quite frequently. And if you're thinking, really guys, do webinars still work? They absolutely do work. In fact, Mac has some stats here that she's going to share with you in a second. I call Mackenzi Mac, by the way, in case you're wondering who I'm talking about. Not my Macintosh, I'm talking about Mackenzi. So Mac is going to share some stats with you here in a second. And what we have found for our clients and for us and for those that are running webinars and digital events is that these events, when one run correctly, can do a lot of things for you. Create new leads, nurture existing leads in your database. They can train your customers, provide value and insights, and build a desire in your prospects and customers for more of your services. And there's a way that you can engineer a webinar that actually sells, not only provides substantial value, but also sells at the end of the webinar, driving revenue. Now, if you have a considered purchase that maybe, isn't conducive to being sold on a webinar, then what you can do is create one of these webinars, and at the end of it, have a call to action that drives appointments for your sales team. So instead of you trying to get inside of an organization and beg for a meeting, you're getting people asking you for these kinds of meetings. So they're very powerful. And what we're also finding is that a lot of people look at these webinars as one-time events, things that happen once on the calendar, but there's a big missed opportunity there. We're going to talk about that today, because you can evergreen these assets, meaning you can do the same thing more than once. Why just do it one time? Take that freaking show on the road. You can also make them just-in-time events where people go and sign up, and it starts in 5 minutes from the time they sign up. We'll show you how you can do that. And if you happen to be invited onto someone else's webinar, or you're presenting somewhere else, there's ways that you can extract opportunities from that as well. So let us know if you have any questions. Mackenzi, you're in the chat, right?
Sort of.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Sort of. Yeah, we see a lot going on here. So folks, if you have any questions, please let us know. Be patient with us as we look across LinkedIn over here, Facebook over there, Zoom over here. All right. Now, Mac, let's share some data.
Yeah. So a lot of you might be wondering, okay, great. So you're saying it works for you. What kind of results are you actually getting? So on the screen, you can see our averages of our last 7 webinars that we hosted, although it doesn't include this latest one, which was much higher than that. But on average, we're driving about 321 registrants with about 47% attendance. So out of those 152, we've also held webinars where there was about 70% attendance, our last one. But the most important thing here is that for me and for Mindfire, the attendance isn't the end all, right? Getting people to the actual webinar is not the end all. Our goal is actually to create a meaningful relationship with them, to start a conversation or continue the conversation. So 150 attendees is our sweet spot. And what I mean by that is when we get about 150 attendees, we have the bandwidth to help these people properly, meaning we have the bandwidth to follow up in a timely manner, to get them the things that they want, to have the one-on-one calls. Once we start getting in the couple hundreds, we feel like our quality is degrading in terms of our follow-up. So for you, men and women, I want you to consider, is more always better? Or is there a sweet spot that you have where based on your time, your bandwidth, your meeting schedule, that you can actually follow up appropriately and start to nurture those relationships? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
So if anybody's doing webinars or digital events like what Mackenzi is talking about, how do these numbers compare? Can you drop us that in the chat over on Facebook or over there in LinkedIn? Let's just look at these numbers here. So 321 registrations on average, 152 attending, almost 50% of the folks that are RSVPing attend. How does that compare? Let us know there in the chat. We'd love to hear what this looks like as you look at your numbers.
And do you consider your ability to follow up in terms of those numbers? Meaning when you plan a webinar, do you say, hey, we want as many people there as possible? Or do we say, okay, based on our team bandwidth, what time of the month it is, how many sales appointments they have, this is really the bandwidth that we have to actually appropriately follow up. So do you take that into consideration when you project your volumes?
Yep. So a couple other things, I touched on this earlier, Mackenzi. I think it's good to repeat for everybody, just in case you're thinking webinars don't work right now, or some people are thinking, hey, they're kind of played out, right? Because everybody's doing them. I would tell you, we're telling you this from personal firsthand experience, that the market appetite and the receptiveness to webinars as we're sitting here right now is still very high. Okay, so don't discount it just because you think everybody else is doing them. They're not necessarily easy to do unless you know what you're doing. So there is kind of a barrier there, which makes it something that once you invest the time in learning how to do it, there isn't really a lot of competition, okay? To do one of these well, if you do them relatively well, you're going to kind of be in an elite group. So don't think just because you're seeing other webinars going on out there or that people are tired of webinars that you shouldn't consider them. We highly suggest you consider them. Second, they take a lot of time, right, Mac? And so if you've ever done any one of these, you probably know you spend a lot of time preparing them. don't just think of them as one and done. Why not do them again? Let's say you're holding one on a Thursday. Wait another week, do it the following Thursday, or maybe try a different day of the week or a different time of the day. You've already prepared the material. You already have everything ready to go. Do it again. And Mackenzi, I think you're going to share a little bit at the end. If you're on someone else's webinar, some of the tactics that we're going to be talking about here are things that you should consider if you happen to be hosted on someone else's webinar, right? That it can drive more leads, more awareness for you if you're thinking about these things in the right way. In terms of the time that it takes to put one of these together, this is just kind of I just want to say, maybe not even a rule of thumb, maybe just something to think about. If you think about the actual event itself as like 10% of your time, then somewhere around maybe 40% of that is preparing for that event in advance. Most people, most organizations just kind of focus on this right here, and they miss this second piece, which is almost just as much time, which is the follow-up. So this is kind of this is the event itself, and this is post-event. So we're going to talk about each one of those and give you some steps that we would suggest you consider in each one of those. Any questions you see coming in, Mac?
Not yet.
Okay, cool. So let's look at the strategy or the framework. You ready, Mackenzi?
Ready.
All right, cool. So men and women, if you look at the screen, please hit some likes for us so that more people see this. And I know that you're still there and pumping with us. If you look at the screen, this is the framework that we want to teach you today from a 50,000 foot view, okay? And so I'm going to walk through it like at a very high level, just so you kind of know where everything is here. And then Mackenzi and I are going to go back and forth on 8 specific steps that you need to know in order to execute this. So for right now, let's just look at the key parts, okay? So I want you to know what you're looking at here. Let me get my pen out again, Mackenzi's favorite pen. And if you look over here on the right-hand side, hello, pen. There we go. Here's the pen. This right here represents kind of like what we're in right now, the event itself, the actual live event itself. And typically those are broadcast with something like GoToWebinar or Zoom these days. And what we recommend you do is hold that event in something like Zoom and then fan out, or opticast as we call it, to other channels like Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, like some of you are doing right now, YouTube, etc. Okay, because you can get a lot of additional eyeballs on your content, on your brand, on your people, if you use something like Restream, which is what we recommend to do that. Okay, so this portion of the illustration represents the live event itself. This portion here represents how you get people signed up for the event. Okay, we're going to walk you through 2 distinct paths to get people signed up. Okay. And then this portion here represents what you do between the time that you get them signed up and the event. And then lastly, in the lower right-hand corner, this is what you do afterwards, okay? So I just want to give you a lay of the map here, and now we're going to step into each of the pieces, piece by piece, so that you have an idea of what each of these areas does for you.
Yeah, so a second ago you said there were 8 tactics, so maybe you have a secret one you haven't yet shared with me.
Oh, baby.
But I have 7.
I always have a secret.
So we have 7, and the first one is really what you do up, planning for the event. So I'm definitely a planner, and planning makes me know that, again, the event is going to succeed. We always say at Mindfire, hope is not a strategy. So we like to do the legwork up front to make sure that we can, to the best of our ability, ensure that success. So just some basic things, obviously pick a date and work backwards. One thing that a lot of people don't do, but is a key part in getting people to register, is to obsess over your title. So one key thing is that your title must drive curiosity so that people see it and they're like, I kind of know what they're going to be talking about, but I really want to learn what it is. You don't want to give everything away, but the title is key to getting people to sign up. So you have to drive curiosity, excitement, and interest. Now, here's one thing that a lot of people are surprised at. What we want you to do is start promoting the webinar before you've actually finished preparing the material. So you're like, wait a minute, how does that go with planning? Okay, so you've picked a date, you've worked backwards, you have this great title, and that title really is the overarching theme of what you're going to be talking about. But when you're building out your slide deck, you really want to use the feedback that you collect in the pre-show warm-up content, which we're going to show you, to create the actual content. Because again, the reason you're putting on the webinar is to drive value for the people that are showing up and that are registering. So if you can use some of the feedback, the most valuable things that they want to learn to actually create the deck, create the content, that's going to ensure that you're driving value. Number 4 is that this process is going to inform you about what your registrants care about. So again, you're delivering value for them. So don't create a deck thinking that it's what you want to learn, right? Create it for them. And what you want to do is work the process so that you are presenting material that's instructive, that's informative and inspirational. And again, if you do it correctly, what you want to do at the end is motivate action. So all the things that you do beforehand is going to set you up to motivate action. So that's really step 1 on the planning. Now, one thing that we often hear is, okay, cool, I got that. Now, what do I actually talk about? What do people care about? So here are just a few thought starters. Ask your audience, ask your database, ask anyone on LinkedIn or any groups that you belong to. What are your biggest challenges with lead generation? What's your biggest challenge with the real estate industry or real estate market in 2020? Whatever the general topic is, start to ask people. The other thing that you can do is choose a few topics and then poll people on LinkedIn. So one of the things that Dave and I talk about is using the poll feature on LinkedIn. Because it's fairly new, it's definitely a pattern interrupt. So when people are scrolling their feed and they see this poll pop up, it tends to drive engagement. So ask people, what do they want to learn about? These have been working great for us as office hours types, where you actually say a general topic and then say, hey, we're just going to be having a Q&A office hours type session. You ask people what's one thing they want you to discuss on the registration process, and then you use that to actually build out the content. And then this is a big one, is what are some common ideas, threads, or questions that you're hearing over and over again, or that your team is hearing? So get your sales team involved, ask them, what are some of the most prevalent questions that you're hearing? What are common threads? What are people interested in? And use those threads to build material that sort of talks about the current times and what people are asking. And my favorite one is choose a topic that you're comfortable with and that you're passionate about, because again, your success in connecting with people is largely dependent on people receiving the content well. And if you're talking about something that you're excited about, that you're comfortable with, that you're passionate about, that's going to shine through. Hopefully it shines through that Dave and I are really passionate about this, because you want to connect with people, right? So choose things that you're comfortable with rather than something where you're like, I'm not really sure I know much about it, or I'm not really excited about it.
So somebody is saying, can you send us, this is awesome, can you send us the PowerPoint deck? So what's the best way for people to do that, Mac? You want them to drop a comment in the chat? Maybe so tag you?
Tag me and put PPT. So I'll know.
Okay.
So that I know exactly what you want.
Sherry is saying so many screenshots. Sherry, which one?
I know what she's talking about.
Okay. You do?
Yeah, I do. She does a weekly roundup where she talks, where she gives each day of the week something really cool that she experienced. And Monday of last week was that she takes 1 million screenshots and then her desktop is filled. And I said that I do the same thing and then I dump them in a folder. So I got you, Jerry.
Got it. Jeffrey is saying Mackenzi is frozen on my screen, or is it everyone? Jeff, she just stays really still. No, she's not frozen for any.
Refresh.
Actually, let's see. Maybe you kind of are, Mac. I just noticed you over on LinkedIn. You are kind of frozen. Let me see.
On mine, it's moving. On my comfort monitor.
Yeah, you're moving. On your comfort monitor, yeah, I see you moving as well. Jeffrey, just refresh if you're in LinkedIn. Where is Jeff? Jeffrey is in LinkedIn. Yeah, refresh over there in LinkedIn, Jeffrey. Sorry about that. So, all right, Mackenzi. So if people want the PowerPoint deck, tag you in a comment and say PPT. Okay, cool. So once you've completed step 1, the planning, you're going to want to start to think about building your registration page. Now, a lot of people fail right here. And Mac, you touched on this a second ago. One of the keys that we found at driving conversion, when I say conversion, I mean getting people to sign up, or getting people who have signed up to actually show up to the event, is curiosity. So if you have a webinar, if you have a topic that's not converting well, meaning people aren't signing up, or they're signing up but they don't attend, consider that people may be assuming that they know the answer to whatever it is that you're talking about. In other words, the human brain if it thinks it knows what that payout is going to be that they get at the webinar, then as humans, we're less likely to register or show up. If they can't figure it out, if they look at whatever the title and the subtitle and the content that you have, and if they look at that and they're like, what the heck is that? What are they talking about? Then what we have found is that folks are more likely to register and show up. There's a couple of good headline templates that you can use. If you want to get those from us, let us know in the chat. We can send those to you. The bottom line, though, is that if people think they're going to get or already know that payoff before they register or before attending, they're going to be less likely to show up, as I mentioned. Now, let me show you an example. Sherry is actually here. She is in the chat, I think, right? Sherry's picture is here on the screen, right over here. Here's Sherry. This is an example from LinkedIn. So if you look over here on the left, this is the top of the post in LinkedIn, okay? This is the image in LinkedIn, okay? So they were together like this. They were all one thing. I had to cut them up here because they wouldn't fit into one screen. Here on the left, we're talking about the webinar that we're promoting. Over here on the right is an image, and you can see the reactions and such from people here. What's missing here is there's no link to the webinar itself. And I know when we teach our students this, when we teach our clients this, they often think, guys, you made a mistake. You forgot to include the link to the webinar. Not the case. What we do is we force engagement by having people comment below in order to get the link to the webinar, okay? So when you're promoting your webinar, the key here is that you want to start engaging people, what we call trial closing them in advance of them even showing up to the webinar. Trial close, we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But what I'm trying to get you to understand here is the more you can get people to make micro commitments, nod their heads, click their fingers, engage with you, each of those little steps is going to help you build a relationship that helps you ensure that not only do they sign up, not only do they get there, but they also engage with you at the webinar and after the webinar. Now, we do posts like this in LinkedIn. We do posts in Facebook. We do email. We're omni-channel. We're everywhere that our customers are and the right channels for them. And there's always a big question that comes up from people. Mac, I'll let you take this one since I know this is near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, so a lot of people say, well, if I post it 2 times or I post on Facebook and LinkedIn and I send an email, are people going to start getting annoyed with my posts? And it's interesting because I take a little moment to remind them of how these platforms work. So quick little overview here. All the platforms, all the social platforms, whether that's Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever it is, their goal is to keep you in their platform as long as they can, right? Because they want you to be in there. They want you to engage with people. They want more traffic, right? They want more people native in their platform. But if they were showing you a bunch of content that you didn't care about, are you going to stay in their platform? Probably not, right? You're going to leave. They're like, oh, they're showing me a bunch of things about cooking and I hate cooking. Just making that up. I actually love cooking. So everything that you do, all of your behaviors, all your actions, all your clicks, what you pause on in your feed, whose profile you go to, right? In the background, an algorithm is understanding your behavior, what you like and what you don't like. So all of the content that LinkedIn and other platforms show you is dependent on the data they've collected about what you like. So if someone is seeing your email, that's separate, but if they're seeing your 5 LinkedIn posts, that's probably because historically they engage with all your posts. So the only people who are going to be seeing all your stuff are the people who are raving fans of you, who like your stuff, who comment, who engage with you. Otherwise, they're not going to be seeing all of it. So our rule of thumb is we encourage you to overpost instead of underpost. And always know that if you lead with value, you're going to attract the tribe of people who resonate with the content that you share.
Yep. So let me show you a few examples. Mackenzi, you asked me to pull a few things to show the faithful here. So what you're looking at here on the screen, I'm actually going to go back just a few slides here and bring up the flowchart so you know where we are. We're going to be on this over here. We're going to be looking at, let me get my pen again, Mac's favorite pen. Whoops. You always struggle with the pen. I'm still getting used to the pen. We're over here right now. we're going to be looking at an example of a lead magnet page. Okay, so I want to show you just an example of what that looks like so you can have in your mind a visual reference and maybe start to think about how you can do the same for yourself. So here's the LinkedIn profile secrets promotion. This is an asset that we promote and that we put in front of our market and our prospects. And so this is the welcome page that someone arrives at when they want to download this particular thing, okay? And I want to call your attention to a few things. Mackenzi has circled them here on the screen for us. The first being this image that you see here. This is a image. It didn't start as that image. This is an image that was tested using Facebook dynamic ads. If you're not familiar with Facebook dynamic ads, it's a very helpful feature in Facebook that allows you to create a post and rapidly test a variety of different headlines, images, and body copy in your ad in order to understand what works best. And so this particular image and this one here, for whatever reason, both performed very well. And typically what we do is we'll use that insight and then update a landing page like this. Now, why are we doing this? We're doing this so more people will actually request the asset, because we know on the next page, we're going to give them an opportunity to attend our digital event. At least you know that now, men and women, because you're here in this training, right? So that's the first thing I want to show you is that image. Over here in the lower left, can you all see that? Drop a yes in the chat if you can see that. Make sure you can see that. Drop a yes if you can see it. This is a tool called Proof. And what this does is this adds a little social proof, a little FOMO to your page. And it shows you how many people are on that page right now, how many people are downloading it. So when I get there, I have to take a look at it as a curious person. And I see, oh my goodness, 38 other people are doing this right now. I got to figure out what the heck this is all about. So it increases conversions by creating that intrigue and giving that social proof. And we typically add it to pages like this to add that little boost of additional conversion that social proof brings. Over here, Mackenzi, I think you circled this because of this section right here. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
What we have found, and this may be true, you have to think about how this applies to you and your business. If you think about, I always use the highway example. If this is a highway or a freeway, depending on where in the US you are, and this is somebody on that freeway or highway, we always try to give folks little off-ramps to be able to get to us more quickly than by going the long way. Let's say this is where they're at right now down here, and maybe this is the destination where we want them to buy something or we want to start a relationship with them. We always want to give them off-ramps where they can do that more easily and quickly. That's what this kind of is. So yes, they're coming for the ebook, but they also have this opportunity if they want to see a demo of our software to say yes. Okay. Now think about that for your business. How could that work for your business? What are some examples of things that might work in your business? It could be, getting a sample part. If you're one of our 3D print friends, in 2D print, it could be 2D print samples of different things that you can do. There's a whole variety of things that you can insert right there to help people get on that off ramp. Did you want to add something there, Mackenzi?
Nope.
Oh, I saw your hand move. Now over here in the lower right-hand corner, we have this live chat. As Mac knows, often people will get here. Some people will be confused about what to do. So we always incorporate that live chat in case they want to ask questions. Again, we're trying to get people to the next step. The next step being this page here. This is the second page they see. I'm going to remove my freeway and highway. You like that, right? This is the second page they see. This is the first time now that they have the digital event in front of them. So it says, thank you, right? Congratulations, your download is on the way. By the way, here's an upcoming training, which is the webinar, that if you like that content, if you're interested in that, this is going to be perfect for you. And it gives them a one-click option, one-click opt-in to register for that training. Does everyone see that? Drop a 1. Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you are, drop a 1 if you're seeing that. See how that works? They get here, and now there's a one-click option to be able to register for the webinar.
Yeah, so a few things I just want to underscore about that. So as Dave mentioned, this thank you page is the first time that this audience is seeing anything about the webinar, but the lead magnet preceding this call to action for the webinar is thematically related. So hypothetically, let's say you're in real estate and you send out a real estate agent's guide to selling during COVID-19. right? Let's just say that's it. You send it to people who are real estate agents. They're like, oh, this is perfect for me, right? So they download the content that has to do with the real estate guide to selling in COVID-19, no mention of the webinar. And then on the thank you page, it says, thank you so much. We'll send that over to you. If you're interested, if you like that, then what you're going to love is a webinar where we're going to be interviewing, let's say, a few key top real estate agents who are going to give their best tips and tricks on how to sell during COVID-19, right? So that thank you page is the first time you're introducing the webinar. And the second thing I want to underscore is the one-click opt-in.
Okay.
If you just had someone fill out a form to download an ebook or a case study or a guide or whatever it is, do not make them fill out the form again to sign up for your webinar. You already just collected that data. So make it as easy as a one click. With that one click, they're automatically signed up for the webinar. Again, decreased friction on that page is going to increase conversion. You're going to make it an easier experience for them to opt in and sign up for that webinar.
So I see Gabriela Gonzalez on LinkedIn asking for a recording of the session. So for those of you who are asking, it'll be here on LinkedIn and we can send it to you. I'm just typing that there to you, Gabriela. So if you want a recording, just let us know there in the chat and we're happy to get that to you. Mac, did you cover this down here in the lower left-hand corner? Did you cover the proof down here?
No.
No? Okay, let me hit that real quick, folks. So if you see this over here in the lower left-hand corner, remember I showed you this on the first page where we use that proof element to create that FOMO, if you will. Here on this page, we introduce it as well, but this page now shows how many people are signing up for the webinar, for the event, okay? And so it's kind of that thing like, if you see a line of people back in the days when you could actually line up really close together, you see a big line outside of something or outside a building or something, you're like, the heck's going on over there? I got to get in line, see what's going on too, right? So that's what this does. And it helps drive more conversions. You can A/B split test it on your landing page. You'll see that often it'll drive more conversions. All right, so let's see. I see chat coming in here. Cool. Hopefully you're able to also look at that as we go through it, Mac. There's a lot of things going on over here, folks. If you've ever done one of these events, you know how many things you have to keep an eye on. So now let's imagine somebody signs up for the event, okay? We're here on the thank you page now, what we call the webinar confirmation page. They're signed up for the webinar, all right? And something we want to underscore here is that this page, if you use something like Zoom to sign people up, where it has, the Zoom 2-page registration process, welcome page with the couple of fields that you fill in, and then a thank you page that says, here it is, add it to your calendar, thank you, you're good to go. You are really missing an opportunity on the thank you page. Think about it this way. Somebody, let's imagine on their phone, was browsing LinkedIn, looking at their email, and you interrupted them. You caught their attention, and they clicked on the link. They opened your email, and they said, this looks kind of interesting. Okay, so they opened their email, or they stopped and looked at your post. They clicked on the link. There's 2 or 3 clicks right there, right? Then they came here. They filled in this information. They clicked this button. Now they're here. I've lost track, 4 or 5 clicks. Now they click here, right? And now they're here. The point is, by the time you have them here, they've been giving you good engagement signals. I see Mackenzi's head moving right now, right? They've been nodding. Don't lose the opportunity to engage them. So what we do here, what we recommend is sometimes embedding a video here of somebody talking to them about the incredible insights they're going to get or the payouts they're going to get by attending the session is useful. Doing something like giving them a free trial to your software, if you're a software company like we are, or something that provides them some value, you're going to find about 20 to 25% of the people who get here are going to take you up on that next step. Some of you can sell things here. It's what's called a self-liquidating offer, meaning if you're selling this for somewhere between $30 to $50, if you're selling something on this page that's aligned with the material that you've been engaging your people with and the subject of the webinar, you can liquidate your ad costs, meaning you can basically, even if they don't buy anything further from you, you're liquidating the cost of whatever it took to get them here in the first place. So there's a lot of opportunity here on the confirmation page. Mackenzi, you want to add anything on that?
No, just that I think it's one of the most underutilized pages. It's one of those pages that people just think, oh, it's an afterthought. Okay, thanks, Dave. you know, whatever it is, but it's just really an opportunity to get closer, to provide more value, to ultimately cultivate that relationship. And I like the video idea because then people start to know who you are, know how you move, know how you talk, and start, you know, the closer of a bond that they can form with you as a human, the closer of a bond they're going to form with your business, right, in your organization. So just an underutilized place that if you take one thing and you just change your thank you pages and look at them as an opportunity to help your recipients, help your prospects and clients more, you're going to have a, you know, a huge benefit.
Yep. So let's make sure we know where we stand right now. So we've come through this path here, right? And we've gotten folks signed up by going through this path on this side here, right? Now what I want to show you is, what does it look like to come through here? Okay, so directly to a webinar registration page and then ending up here. That's what we're going to look at right now. So here's an example of a webinar that we run. This was one that we ran. Actually, this one's coming up, right? September 2nd. That's still in the future, right? I'm losing track of time. So this is one that's upcoming. And I just want to call your attention to a few things. The headline and the subheadline to the webinar have been tested. Now you know one of the secrets. We use Facebook ads to quickly test a variety of headlines and text body copy in order to understand what may resonate best with the audience that we're going after. So these are tested headlines, tested subheadlines. You see there's an element of scarcity. Zoom does have a limit in terms of the number of seats it can handle. So we make sure that we put that front and center. We do also use proof here in the lower left-hand corner, again, showing how many people are signing up for this class, driving that FOMO. I don't want to miss out if my competitors are going to be there. So we use those elements like we've shown you already, as well as chat over here in the lower right-hand corner. We do occasionally get people, like I said, who just don't know how to sign up for this stuff, right? Who need help. And so it's always good to be able to enable a chat. So if you're getting some value out of this, go hit some likes on Facebook, smash those hearts over there on LinkedIn. Give us some juice over there so we know that we're hitting some good points here for you. This is the welcome page. And when I click yes, save my seat, I ultimately arrive back here. We saw this a second ago, right? So again, now we're at this high value thank you page where we have the opportunity to be able to take them to a next step. That's this path here. Mackenzi, you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, so most people, as Dave started the conversation with, that's really the path that they choose is, oh, we have a webinar, great. What we're going to do to promote it is we're just going to promote the webinar. So we're trying to give you two different paths that you can take to maximize your reach and get the most people signed up. Again, one way, go through the lead magnet route on the thank you page, then introduce the webinar. Second route is the direct webinar registration page. We can talk about when you actually do these things. There's really two camps. Some people say, we like to start, let's say, 3 weeks in advance. A benefit of starting 3 weeks in advance is that obviously you can get more people, more time equals more people registered. But a con or a negative of scheduling something 3 weeks out is who knows what happens between those 3 weeks. I mean, I just think about one day and I can sign up for something one day. And that's really as far out as I can commit, because as we all know, we're busy. Fires, at business come up. You have calls that are scheduled. If you're at home, maybe your kids start crying and, you have to change plans, whatever it is. So one camp is really far in advance, let's say 3 weeks. Pro, high registration. Con, low attendance rate or lower attendance rate. The other camp, which I think works really well for us based on data and actually based on some of our recent trainings, people say that they see sort of the same results, is to start promoting the webinar a week before. So let's say the webinar is Thursday. Start the promotion either the Thursday or the Friday before. And yeah, exactly. And the benefit of that is that typically the people who sign up within a week of an event, those are most likely the people to actually show up. Now, if you're not going hard on that week and really promoting it, really going hard on it, you could have a lower registration. But again, for us, the goal is high attendance, high engagement, and high post-show activities. So for us, that's what works best. But again, for you, you need to find your sweet spot.
So let's, Mackenzi, let's dive into this portion right here. So let's imagine that folks are signed up now. So they've hit here through either path, right? Let's talk about kind of what you're describing, what that period of time in between those, the sign up event and the actual event itself. Okay. So that's what we're going to look at now, folks. Let me proceed to the next step here, which is what we call the indoctrination and engagement emails that are going to be building the relationship that you have with those people who are registered. Like you said, Mackenzi, a bazillion things can come up between the point at which somebody registers and when they actually show up to the event. So here's some things that we found really, really useful. When you email them, Zoom will send a standard thank you email, which is good. You should use that. I'll tell you why in a second. But if you send an email to the registrant and ask a simple question, one of the two questions that we have here on the screen will do it. Something like, hey, what caught your eye about topic? Whatever the topic is that you're going to be presenting. Or, hey, what's your number one question about how to, whatever the topic is that you're talking about. If you ask these questions, what's going to start to happen is people will respond to you and give you some incredible insight. We do this all the time, and sometimes we get so many responses back. Mackenzi, you remember we were in this situation, was it last week, where we had like 3 people trying to help reply to all of these emails that were coming in, and we were literally backed up hundreds at a time. Okay, it's building relationship, it's building engagement. And it's helping you, if you remember back to what Mackenzi said, extract information from your registrants that you can use to actually build the material in the digital event, in the webinar itself. So very simple tactic. We also send emails with videos in them, other emails that help keep the engagement and the excitement around the event itself high. And all of this can be automated. I was almost going to say the trick, but I think I should use a different word. The
key.
The what?
The key.
The key is to make it look human. People like to work with people. People are attracted to people. And so when you create these automated emails, if you can do this with your brand, I know that some cannot. I know there's brand guidelines that some cannot go against. But if you can make it look human, meaning like someone actually took the time to write it out on an iPhone, means it might have a typo in it, means it might have some odd formatting. When you do those things, what happens to the engagement, Mac?
It goes really high.
It goes through the roof. And if you have the guts, men and women, to try that, just try it. You'll be amazed by what happens. Now, the other thing we suggest is get the list of registrants. And if you have a sales operations team or an SDR team, or if you have a group of people who can look through that, maybe your sales team, you're going after a certain set of organizations and you see, oh my goodness, we've been trying to get into ABC Co for years, for months, whatever the case may be. They signed up. For those high value registrants, do some one-on-one interaction to drive attendance and interaction. Mackenzi, what do we do when we have situations like that?
Yeah, so what we typically do is as people start to register for the event, we immediately extract that data and we start to divvy it up among a few different groups of teams, our sales team, our what we call marketing response team or SDR team, so that we can start to figure out who those people are and to start the relationship with them. Again, the more that you're connected to them, the more they're going to be likely to show up for the event. The other thing is we'll, of course, make sure to connect with them on LinkedIn and just start to ask them questions, engage with them. And also doing this makes your life easier after the event, which we're going to talk about. But those post-show plays are really important and they're time sensitive. And so if you start from a blank slate at the end of the event, just starting with this blank spreadsheet, it's really, you're kind of behind already, right? So What we do is in driving interaction and driving attendance, we start to annotate that spreadsheet of who's registering. Oh, this is Nicole's prospect. She's been working with him. Here's what he's really interested in knowing. He's going to also invite his colleague, Sherry, as an example, right? The more that you have that information, the more you can use it post-show to then better communicate and follow up with your prospects.
So men and women, if this is useful to you, will you drop a yes in the chat, whether you're on LinkedIn or over there on Facebook, wherever you're seeing us, drop a yes, put an exclamation mark if it's really useful to you. Give us a little insight into how we're doing here, because it's a lot of fun and it takes a lot of work to put these on. We want to make sure we're delivering value to you. So that's step 3. Now on step 4, we're going to talk about the reminders that you should be sending your attendees to your digital event? Give me a yes. I want to see the yeses coming in on chat. LinkedIn, over there on Facebook, drop some yeses if you're getting value from this. What we typically do in terms of reminders is send one 24 hours before, sometimes on the morning of, and you can very easily configure something like Zoom to send an hour before and 15 minutes before the actual event itself. Okay, so if you're using Zoom or you're using GoToMeeting, we recommend actually leverage those reminders. One reason why we suggest that is depending on what email service provider you're using. The emails that you've been sending may not be getting to that individual, or maybe going to a different tab. Let's say if they're using Gmail, right? If you use Zoom or use GoToWebinar, you're using their infrastructure and who they send emails through to get to your registrants. And sometimes those emails will get through when yours don't. So it's very helpful to have that additional air cover, if you will, from your webinar software to be able to get those emails over there. Mackenzi, we get some yeses coming in here?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Jason. Great. Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. Now, Mackenzi, we're at the big day. We're going to present live here. Okay. This is step 5, folks. A couple things I want to say here. Learning to do this, learning to present through a digital event, through a webinar, is a skill. It's something that most people have to learn. Okay. You don't come out of the womb one day knowing how to present on a webinar. Okay. So if you're not comfortable with it, just know that everybody goes through that. It takes a little getting used to. One thing that you have to learn how to do is emote the right level of energy. And so if you've ever done anything like this, and if you've ever gone back and watched yourself, you know that when it feels like you're maybe 1.5 times your normal energy level, to the viewer, that looks pretty normal. In other words, if you come out and you're at the normal energy level, you're actually going to seem kind of depressed, kind of low level, low energy. So you got to amp yourself up a little bit, which feels a little awkward if you're not used to it. But when you do that, you come across with good energy as you're presenting. And again, this is not something that necessarily comes easy to everyone. This is something you have to learn. Don't worry. If you go out the first time and you don't do your best or what you think you should have done, you can always do it again. It's not the end of the world. Another thing you want to learn how to do is trial close. Trial close, it's often easier to see this if you're live and in front of people, if you're speaking on a stage. And it's when you ask questions like, are you getting this? Does this make sense? Are you following? Does everyone know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Those types of questions, inevitably, those are the types of questions that get people to nod their heads, even if they're not realizing it. Does that make sense? That right there is an example, right? People mentally or even physically will start to nod their head. And so if you embed 40, 50, 60 trial closes within your webinar presentations, especially if your intent is to sell them something at the end, those trial closes will get them in the mindset of already agreeing with you, with seeing things your way. If you're not selling something and you're setting up an appointment, if you want them to perhaps request an appointment with your sales team, those trial closes will help. Does this make sense, Mackenzi?
It does. And it's also really important because when you're speaking face-to-face with people, you can see their body language, right? So you can see their face, how they're reacting. You can typically tell if people are with you. But if you're communicating one way, so if it's async communication and like we're broadcasting to you without the likes, the yeses, the nos, the PowerPoints, without that feedback, we don't know if you're with us. We don't know if we should just shut this down because no one cares anymore. And at the end of the day, we're not presenting and you shouldn't be presenting for your own good, right? The goal with anything that you do, whether it's put out content or share webinars or whatever you're doing, is to provide value to the recipient, provide value to the attendee. And so you have to ask questions to learn how it's being received, what people want more of, even little things like, do you want the PowerPoint? If they want the PowerPoint, you have to know those things so that you can manufacture that body language that you're not able to see because you're not in a two-way communication with them.
Yep. Totally agree. So the other thing that is helpful Actually, Mackenzi asked me to share a couple of behind the scenes photos here, so it'll become more clear in a second. If you haven't done an event like this, speaking, running Zoom, looking at the chat, keeping everything running, that's a lot of stuff to try to keep in your head all at the same time. So it's very helpful to have at least one other person, maybe somebody who can be in chat while you're delivering the content or the material. The other thing that's really useful is having multiple monitors. If you're trying to do this off of one monitor, there's really not enough real estate on that one monitor to have your presentation, to have your speaking notes, to see the chat, to do Restream, to see LinkedIn, to see Facebook, to have your own there's a whole lot of things that you need room for, okay? So multiple monitors are useful. Mac, did you want to add something there? I heard you chuckle.
No.
Okay.
I was just laughing. Enough real estate.
Yeah. The other thing is a very useful tool when you're presenting live like this is if you've got a Zoom webinar that you're doing, there's a good service here called Restream.io. Actually, Mackenzi has a list of some of the tech stack items that you might want to consider. Restream makes it really easy to fan out your broadcast across multiple channels. In fact, that's what we're doing right now. So those of you who are watching this in Zoom are also, we're feeding this out to LinkedIn. So some of you are seeing us in LinkedIn. Others of you are seeing us over on Facebook, right? And so we're using Restream to get this broadcast out to those other channels. Now, Mac, you asked me to pull this picture here. Everyone, go drop an X in the chat if you can see this here. Drop an X in the chat if you can see this. I want to make sure you can see this behind the scenes. This is what our setup looks like. Forgive the mess. Let me show you what you're looking at here. This is what it takes. This is what we use to broadcast on the day of. Drop an X if you can see this, everyone. Facebook, LinkedIn, make sure you're tracking here with us. Over here, this is that application I mentioned to you, Restream.io. This is the chat. It's pulling in chat from all of the different locations that we're broadcasting in, okay? So that's what this is over here. Right here are my speaking notes. So if you've ever done a PowerPoint, you know how you can write speaking notes, and then when you present, you can separate those on two different monitors. I put the speaking notes up here, the presentation down here, okay? Up here is a digital webcam. So most everybody these days is comfortable turning on their webcam. Most people are also kind of expecting to see something, to see a person in many of these meetings. So go get yourself this is a Logitech that we use up here. That's what's up here at the top. Over here this is related to Restream.io. This is showing what's being pushed out to the other channels that you're fanning out to. That's what you're seeing there. Over here, you're seeing the attendee list, any polls that are being run, the chat as it's coming in, and Q&A. So my goodness, that's a lot, right? Even just that right there, that's a lot to try to keep an eye on. Over here on the right, this is like what we call our back channel. So this is the Mindfire team. Sometimes that's Mackenzi, sometimes that's Jessica, that's other people on our team in case something goes wrong, or I need something, or we need something done. You never know what could happen. It's always helpful to have a back channel open over there. So that's what you're seeing. And then down here, as I mentioned, this is the presentation. This is actually the PowerPoint, if we're using a PowerPoint that's being broadcast. Mac, what do you think when you see all of this?
So if it's not something that you do all the time, it can be a little bit intimidating. Like, what's going on? He has effectively 6 different screens across all of his different screens. But, I think it's important to keep in mind that everyone has to start somewhere. And the most important thing is that you just start. What we don't want is you not having equipment being a barrier to you actually producing events. So what I mean by that is if you don't have Restream, if you don't have a digital camera, if you just have your one MacBook or your one computer, that's fine. The most important thing is that you start somewhere and that you actually produce an event and start getting out there. So on the next screen, you can see a picture of sort of where we started out. And as you can see, it doesn't include all those fancy things that Dave had on that last picture. It has my favorite is the wire, not the earbuds, but the wire ones, which he was using for both his audio and his, yeah, exactly.
This right here,
hearing and also talking. Yep.
Yeah.
He's got his coffee. That's important to amp him up. He's got one screen. He's got his monitor that allows him to broadcast, and then the one that he's using for the actual broadcasting out. And then on the left-hand side, the most important thing, in my opinion, is the hardwire, because if you have done these before, Wi-Fi sometimes goes out and then you start sounding really nothing worse than that. So make sure that you hardwire. Pro tip, if you hardwire, that's not enough. Go up and turn off your Wi-Fi, because once you turn off that Wi-Fi, then you'll start getting the power from that, or getting the internet from that hardwire.
Yeah, we definitely speak from experience on that fact. So that's a great point. And then Mac, the comfort monitor over here. This is helpful. By the way, you can see how dusty this is right here. My wife would absolutely kill me if she saw this right here. But this comfort monitor over here is helpful if you're doing this by yourself. If you're doing it by yourself and it's the first time you've done it, and maybe you have a small group, you maybe just talking and presenting and getting into your gig and thinking, shoot, is this even working? So this comfort monitor is one that's very useful to dial into your own presentation. You can see it out of the corner of your eye. You can see if what you're presenting is showing up. You can turn the volume on real quick, see if you can actually hear yourself, and then at least you know things are working. If you have any questions about the setup or any of the tools or anything we use, we do have a slide coming up with some of it listed there, but let us know. Go over to Facebook chat, go over to LinkedIn chat. Let us know if you have any questions.
There's actually, can you go back 2 slides really quick? There's just one thing that I think is really important. There you go. Here. Exactly. There's one thing that I think is really important here. A lot of you asked us, hey, we're doing the events, we're getting registrants, we're getting attendees, but we're having trouble converting them or actually scheduling conversations. So one part is the attendee list. So as you can see, Dave has the attendee list up. And then one that's hidden behind the scene is that spreadsheet. Remember, as you were starting to promote the event and people were registering for it, we told you to keep a spreadsheet to go after, to market to start to communicate with the high value registrants, right? So as people engage during the webinar, you want to note those things. So I don't remember who the name was that I was using, but let's just say Nicole has a high value prospect, and we know that because it was annotated on the spreadsheet. And now that prospect starts asking specific questions during the webinar. You want to note those things because, of course, at the end of it, you can go download the chat, and I recommend you doing that. But I want to know how many of you have downloaded a chat and tried to go through line item by line item, trying to find the needles and trying to find the needles in the stack of a million chats. It's painful. I've done it many times, and it's not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is either take a sentence from that chat and put it in the spreadsheet. So next to the person's name, just have one sentence that you can control F and find it, or put timestamp, 1042 ask this question, so that you don't have to spend hours going through the chat, sifting through it, trying to find those high value questions, high value engagements. Annotate that as you go through it.
I have a question here from Jason. Mac, maybe you can help me understand this. Do you find the separate mic in front of you makes it less personal or intimate with your audience? And I assume, Jason, you mean this mic that you can see here in this video right now? Let us know if that's what you mean. Well, we haven't, or something else. How do you read that?
No, I was going to say, if that's what he means, we don't know. You tell us. Do you feel that Dave's professional mic there makes it feel less intimate versus my AirPods, or maybe we're misunderstanding your question? So Jason, just want to make sure
make sure we understand. And Jason, one other reason why we do this is, and we're going to talk about this in a moment, but when you run these live events, there's a lot of extra juice you can get out of them. One of them is extracting just the audio and hosting it as a podcast. So we want to ensure that the audio quality for those that are auditory learners is high. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why we invest in additional equipment. But let's make sure we got your question. So Jason's saying, this is great. I do so many presentations and need all the tips I can get. Jason, wonderful. Let us know if we answered your question. Cool. We're going to keep going. So Mackenzi, thanks for bringing that back up here. Here we are again at the framework. We're going to talk about now step number 6, which is the follow-up here, right? That's where we're going to go next. So in terms of follow-up, here's some basic best practices that we suggest. Now you've had the event, you've had some people who have attended, and you have had a group that didn't make it, right? So to the attendees, what we suggest you do, if you've done this before, you know that it takes some time for the video and all of the materials, the PowerPoint, to render and to be put somewhere where people can get it. And what we have found is very helpful is sending a very simple human-looking email that simply says, Jason, thanks for attending the event. It was a lot of fun to be with you, so that we can prioritize our follow-up. What would you like next from us? And we list number 1, PowerPoint, 2, video, 3, audio, 4, something else. And when we send those emails, people will reply back, great presentation. I'd like the slides. Great presentation. I'd like number 2. And what it does is it continues the conversation, keeps them warm. Later on that day, later on that night, once the video is ready and the PowerPoint's ready, all of that stuff is ready, you can put it on a blog post and email everyone a link to that post with that information in it. So this is very helpful to keep people engaged up to that point. Now, the other thing, okay, Mac, it looks like you added a hint here. Go ahead, tell us the hint.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, okay, well, why don't I just send that out? So this is different. Again, everyone sends out the recording afterwards and just sends it to everyone, right? You want to be a pattern interrupt. You want to be different. And also you want to keep the conversation going. So if you have done one of these, you know that it can take some time to render the actual recording. Then you have to put it on, let's say, a landing page, make sure you get everything ready, right? That all takes time. And during that time, people are getting distracted. People are, they're hot in that moment, right? You want to strike when the iron's hot. So instead of waiting for all those things to happen, this email bridges the gap between the session that you just had live and the recording that you're going to send later.
Absolutely. Now, the folks that didn't make it, similar tactic there. Sorry you missed it. Would you like the recording? And now most people will say, well, why don't you just give them the link to the recording? You can, you certainly can. But again, at this point, you may not have it yet. And you want to continue that engagement, as you were just saying, Mackenzi. So just asking them, would you like it? Now they got to reply yes. And again, continue that engagement. Or maybe they ask you a question that you can then funnel over to your sales team or an account executive, right? So that's the second thing you should consider doing. And Mackenzi, I think you have a similar suggestion there. Ask them what they want to gauge their interest, to gauge or ascertain what they would like next from you, right? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Now, in terms of divvying up the list for sales, Mackenzi, why don't you share a little bit about how we do that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the list divvy up starts prior to the event. So even if not everyone's going to show up, you still want to do a lot of the legwork up front, because if you've ever done this, you know it takes time, more time than people are off onto their next email, their next webinar, their next meeting, right? So again, start by divvying up the list when people register, and then just do a data compare. Super easy to compare. Okay, I've got my registration list. I divvied it up. I put notes on who the high value prospects are. Then during event, I've annotated it to add the questions that people ask, or hey, John says he wants the PowerPoint. Whatever those things are, right? You've done most of the legwork. Now that the show is over, just do a Control F. Find the group of people out of that list that actually have attended. And look, instead of waiting hours, you've already divvied up that list. Now, some pro tips on how to divvy it up. Divvy it up based on territory, divvy it up based on digital body language. So, hey, this person was really engaged. I'll often put notes. This person was heavily engaged during the webinar, asked great questions such as this, this, and this, right? So that's someone you definitely want to pass to someone to follow up with. The other thing is that this is your opportunity to find the diamonds in the rough, to find the people who are actually resonating with your content, who want to learn from you, and that you have the opportunity to help even more by continuing the conversation. So make sure that your team has this list sooner rather than later. The way you do that is you do most of the legwork before and during the event, so that afterwards it's plug and play, right? Like just a personal goal. My goal, what is it, Dave, is to get the list out to our team who's going to be following up within about 30 minutes.
Yep.
I know that sounds crazy, right? So what do you mean? You're going to literally give the list of people who are, but yeah, that's literally the goal, because if you're selling something, or if you're scheduling, or if you're, they're still in that frame of mind, right? So you want to continue on with that.
Strike while you can. It's hot. Yep, exactly. So when you have the opportunity then to have your video ready to go, you have your PowerPoints ready to go, what do you do with all that stuff? Typically what we suggest you do is create a blog post with kind of like a summary of the event. Again, not too many details. You don't want to necessarily give them the payout of what they're getting in the video when they watch it. So crank up that curiosity, include the video, could be hosted on YouTube. Extract the audio, so pull out the audio and put it over on SoundCloud. Save the slides as a PDF, and then include a call to action, some sort of call to action for those who want to engage further. Okay. And so in your blog post, put that together, put all of those things there, and then use this blog post as something your sales team can use to follow up with folks. Your SDRs, your BDRs can use it. to engage those who attended. Some people may not have stayed for the whole thing and want to see what they missed. Use this as kind of the central hub to then direct all traffic to. Okay. So that's what you saw over here in the lower right-hand corner. And you might think, oh, we're done. But as I mentioned at the beginning, there's a big opportunity to repeat this. One of the areas where most people fail to minimize the investment and time that they've made in all of what I just showed you is in what we call taking the show on the road. Even if you don't end up doing this 4 or 5 times, why not just do it a second time? Maybe a different day of the week, as I said at the beginning, different time of the day, maybe a different part of the world would be dialing in or attentive, okay? You've already got all the materials. Heck, you might even do better the second time around, right? If you flub something on the first one, you're like, I didn't really like how I positioned that. Or shoot, that didn't land. Too many questions there. I wasn't clear. You have an opportunity to do it again. So take it on the road, do it live multiple times, different days, different times, maximize your investment in all of those materials. Consider creating an evergreen version. What I mean by this is we'll share with you some of the tools that can help you do this. You can start promoting this webinar. People can go sign up and then they can watch it right then and there, or at the start of the hour, the new hour, or in 5 minutes, 15 minutes. There's technologies that allow you to do that. It's different than a recording. Mackenzi, you want to talk a little bit about how it is different than a recording?
Yeah, so the difference from the recording is that you can actually do a few things like chat live. So let's say you use an evergreen service, it plays the recording as if it's live, but then you can actually be there chatting in real time so that you can at least answer people in real time and be there to communicate with them. And it's just also, as Dave started out this whole session with, there's a mindset, right? And when people are showing up to an event at a specific day at a specific time, typically they're more engaged, they're more in tune, and they are more present, both physically, but also mentally. So, and I don't know, I've gotten recordings and I'm listening to the recording on a run, and that's great, right? I'm still consuming content, but if it's something that's really important to me that I want to actually like dedicate a specific day and time, by having it evergreen, you're enabling people to connect to a specific event at a specific time. Yeah,
that's huge. That's huge. I see people sending you their emails and such in chat, Mac. Is that for the PowerPoint? People want the PowerPoint?
They want something.
They want something. Send me something.
Just kidding.
Baby.
Yes. Yeah. So I think they want PowerPoint.
Okay. Cool. So if you're over in Facebook, we'll go back there and go through the comments. So drop us your preferred method of communication if you want to get this PowerPoint. We're not done yet. If you're over there on LinkedIn, keep dropping those in there. I see Mackenzi chatting with you, and I'm dropping in every now and again. So let's give them a list now of kind of the tech stack here, just a few of the things that they might technology-wise need, Mac.
Yeah, so just to preface this, we are not financially or in any way affiliated with any of these companies that we're about to show you. These are just tools that make our lives easier. We've done a lot of these webinars. We've used a lot of tools. This is what helps us. By the way, if you have tools that you use to put on digital events that are super helpful to you, please share them with us. We also want to learn from you just as much as you're here to learn from us. So on the tech stack, we've got, for us, we use Zoom along with Restream.io. As Dave mentioned, we use Zoom to record the event, and then Restream.io shares it or fans it out to all those other channels. Along with that, we showed you useproof.com, which is that little button in the bottom left for us that says, oh, 58 people are on this page. Oh, 37 other marketers are signing up for the webinar, just to give people some social proof that they're also engaging. Next up, Hello Bar, fairly inexpensive, super easy tool to drive engagement from your website. So if someone's browsing on your website and they're interested in, let's say, a specific blog post or even just your general page, use that as a way to market to them and let them know about this great digital event that you're going to be hosting. Next two things are landing page software and email software. As we showed you, some of the cornerstones or key parts of this process is using the welcome page of the landing page. The thank you page is really important, right? And you need some great, robust landing page software that's going to enable you to put a bunch of valuable content on those pages. Obviously, for us at Mindfire, we are biased and we use our own email and our own landing page software to do those things. It makes it really easy for us to do those. If you have any questions, please feel free to let us know. We're happy to help you on that. Then we use Google Presentation for slides. Again, you want to make it as easy as on yourself the day you're presenting. So Google presentation makes it really easy to do that. Have your speaking notes, your presentation view. And then lastly is Demio, which is the platform that we use to evergreen. So as Dave said, you want to repeat that as take that show on the road. So essentially what you do is you just upload that recording, you schedule it as if it's an event, a live event, and then you can chat with people right there natively within Demio. It's really easy, and we find it helpful. So again, these are just some of the tools that we use. We're not financially affiliated or affiliated, but if you are using tools that you feel that we need to know about that aren't on this list, please share them with us. We want to learn from you. And yeah, so the next one is that we have a checklist. So even if we do these weekly, daily, we always forget things. And so it's important for us to have a checklist of required assets and pre, during, and post-show plays that we run to make sure that we're doing all the things. Because as Dave mentioned, and as you all know, so many things happen the day of the event or before the event, and you've also got your other responsibilities that you're doing in your normal life, in your work life. So checklists are always great. If you want a copy of the checklist, please put checklist in the comments so that I know that that's something that you want. Again, whether you're in Facebook or LinkedIn, wherever you're consuming this webinar today, go over and put checklist, and I will make sure to get you that checklist.
I'm doing it too, Mackenzi.
Awesome. Thank you. For once, it's you doing it. No,
yeah, exactly.
And then, yeah, exactly. And then the last thing we want to talk about, just to round out the session, is maximizing non-owned events. So let's say you are a guest speaker on a panel, or you are co-hosting, or you're on someone else's webinar. We believe that you can get just as much value, if not more, from that as you do if you're running your own event. But again, it takes some things that you need to do. So the key here is the mind shift. And the mind shift is that even if you're on someone's webinar, we encourage you to participate and benefit from it as if it was your own. And so the first thing is that you need to actually drive people there. Don't wait for the person who's hosting the event to do all the marketing promotion, right? You want your prospects to go there. You want your customers to benefit from it, right? You're going to invest time to host an event that you feel is hopefully really valuable to your team members, to your prospects, to your customers. So instead of just relying on the host, make sure you drive people there. And again, how do you drive people there? You can use the framework that we showed you either through the lead magnet and then on the thank you page, or directly to the webinar, preferably both of those. But again, drive people there. The second thing is make sure that you're in sync with the host and ask them, hey, can I have a call to action that connects what my section to whatever I'm teaching them? So, hey, even though I only have a 5-minute speaking session, I'd love to get in front of more of these people to learn about their challenges, to help them more. Can I give a Calendly link in the chat? Can I put a slide with my email address? Can I engage with them? Again, ask beforehand, because the day of, that's not a good time to ask. They're busy, they're trying to produce the event. Again, other things to ask the host is if you can get a list of the registrants and the attendees, run the same plays that we talked about during the session to those people, even if it's not your event. Make it accessible to get in touch. Let's just say you are a panel on event and they cannot, or they won't share the registration list, they won't share the attendee list. That's not an excuse. Go look and see who's engaging. Look at the attendee list, right? So maybe this organization shared it on LinkedIn and a lot of people are commenting, great session, really loved it, right? Those are the people that went. So make sure to proactively engage them. Oh, I forgot to delete number 5. I've now taught this same slide 3 or 4 times now, and I've made the mistake of keeping it on. So just cross it out, just get it out. And then the last one is run the post-show marketing plays as if it was your own. Again, if you want to benefit from these events, you have to put in legwork to contribute to their success and to extract success from them.
All right, so let's do this, Mac. We have the next slide here is open for questions. So I'm going to pull us both here on the screen. I saw Jason asking for the checklist. Folks, we kind of went through all the material that we provided, that we wanted to provide to you today. We've been through all the different parts of the framework. We stepped through all of the steps. We gave you some of the insights. This is all from firsthand knowledge, stuff that we do on a daily basis, things that we help clients with. So now we're going to hang out here for a few minutes and just see what questions you have, whether you're on Facebook or you're on LinkedIn. Mackenzi, why don't you? What? I'm looking all over the place. Like, where do I look? Oh my gosh. Why don't you? Were there any questions that you saw come in that you think we should take care?
No, I'm also trying to think of other common questions that people asked when we train this. I think the common one that we talked about is how long in advance do you start promoting? And we went over those 2 camps. What other questions can you think of, Dave, that people, or that when we host them, that typically come up over and over again?
One of the questions that comes up is like, how long does it take to do all of this stuff? I would say that it depends on the type of webinar. One of the things that we will often do is try to syndicate content in a way that allows us to maximize multiple opportunities with that particular piece of content. And so when you can do something like that, when you figure out ways to kind of leverage the content in a variety of different ways, you can decrease the amount of time that you spend on preparing the material. We did a training back on the 12th. I guess that was earlier this month, where we kind of did everything from the ground up. It was probably a good 100 hours of time invested in it. That includes creating the deck, figuring out what we're going to say, how we're going to tell the stories, how we're going to take everyone through, what we're going to do with them, in each of the different pieces, promoting it, getting folks to attend, getting them registered, all of the different things that we showed you. So it can be a significant investment of time, which is, again, why we say take the show on the road.
Yeah, and I also feel like that's a key portion of why we are so focused on the follow-up, because just like anything, if you're spending tons of hours doing something, you want it actually to be successful, right? And so I love this thing that I always say, which is we don't get brownie points for producing the event. We don't get brownie points for sharing the content, right? We get brownie points when people benefit from it. And in order for them to benefit from it, they need to know that it exists. They need to show up. They need to find it valuable. They need to connect with you, right? So instead of just going through the motions, use this as an opportunity to bring as much value to your audience as possible, to deepen that relationship with them, and to, on your side, turn it into leads and sales for your team, so that you are maximizing and creating a wildly successful digital event. And also, if you think about in-person events, like how long does that take? You have to fly. You have to, in many cases, you have to get a hotel. You need to stay there, right? So those are.
Jeffrey's saying here something interesting. He says, I like how everything is planned out to make sure ROI is maximized. Yep. And also about the nature of virtual. Everything was headed in that direction, but the virus just pushed us into it quicker than planned. I agree with that. Don't think people are going to get tired of it. Yeah, I hear you, Jeffrey. Good point. Very good point. Questions, comments, folks. I know we're going to have to go through all the questions and comments to find, what was it, checklist and PowerPoint, I think were the things that you asked.
PPT and checklist.
PPT and checklist, yeah. So if you just jumped in, you missed an incredible time here with me and Mackenzi, just kind of ad hoc decided to go live and walk everybody through how you can run wildly successful digital events. So hopefully you've been here the majority of the time. If not, let us know. We can send you a link to the recording or something to get you back to where you want to be. Mac, anything else that you see in here? I know we've been here for quite some time, so thank you all for being with us.
Yeah, it's been fun. I don't see anything else, but like Dave mentioned, we're here to help. But you know what we should do is let's go put, obviously they're connected with us, but I'm going to put my LinkedIn there as well. Yep, my contact information is there. Imagine if I would have misspelled it. But my contact information is there. Please feel free to reach out to me if there's anything that I can help with, if you have any questions, or if you want to just discuss it. You know, this is something that Dave and I are really passionate about, because it's something that allows us to bring value to our customers and our prospects, get closer to them. And also just, it allows us to sustain and grow our lead gen, our demand gen, our opportunities and sales. So if you do have any questions you want to discuss further, there's anything we can help with, please feel free to reach out. And if you have any tips or tricks for us, like I said, we're going through this just like you are. So please feel free to share those with us as well, because we are always learning.
I see Jason Leonard over there on LinkedIn. He's saying, thank you both. This was great. Thank you, Jason, for that.
Thanks, Jason.
What stood out to you, Jason? What was helpful? It sounds like you do a lot of presentations yourself. Would love to know what was useful to you. What stood out to you? What were the things that, maybe you learned that you picked up today that are new or different, things you hadn't considered before. I'd love to hear that. Mac, let's give him a chance to think and respond. And thank you to Jeffrey as well. Appreciate you, Jeffrey Duke, over there in LinkedIn. You had a couple of people you were talking with earlier, I think Eva. Hopefully I pronounced your name right, Eva. Thank you for that. I see a few others that I recognize here as well. It's great to see friendly faces in here. I see Anna. Anna was in one of our courses last week. I'm losing track of time here. So let's see what we come back with here from you, Jason. Did Jason respond yet? I'm refreshing here. LinkedIn needs to work on their LinkedIn Live a little bit.
I was gonna say, it's constant refreshing, but hey, you know what? We're thankful to the platform to be able to get out in front of you and share this content with you. So
yeah, if you're still here with us, if you're just listening, please hit some likes, hit some hearts or something so we can see that you're here. Go do that in LinkedIn. Same thing on Facebook. Please hit some likes. Give us some juice, give us some love. Jason is saying the entire process you use, I'm pretty basic and you've given some new tools. Okay, cool. Then our job is done, Jason. That's awesome. Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. All right. Well, you have Mackenzi's contact information there on the screen. Obviously, if you're watching on LinkedIn or you're watching on Facebook, you're somehow connected to the Mindfire universe. I see the claps coming in. That's great. Thank you, folks. Give us some hearts. Give us some claps. How about some hearts, some love? There we go. Here they come. That's cool. Love seeing that. You're connected with us in some way if you're seeing us on LinkedIn or Facebook. So if you have any questions, if there's anything else we can do to serve you, thank you for joining our ad hoc training today. I appreciate it. Mackenzi, thanks for the great job you did in preparing all the material and making this happen.
Thank you.
All right. See you, men and women. Have a great rest of the day.
Nice one. Bye.
Bye.